All right, based on a nationwide survey of over 1,500 U.S. adults conducted in March and April of this year, the Job Seeker Nation report reveals that candidates are increasingly hitting pause and stepping back from the job market altogether due to a breakdown in trust, longer job searches, and a rise in hiring fraud. I am joined now by Stephanie Manzellie. She's the Chief People Officer, at Employ, the company behind Jazz HR, Lever, and JobVite, to discuss the data and what it means for HR leaders. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. You're joining us from Boston there.
Yeah.
Besides the report, what else is new at the Employ these days?
Oh gosh, so much is new. We are, we deliver people first hiring solutions that empower companies to overcome hiring challenges. And so we have, AI powered hiring platforms. You listed them. And so really it's us, continuing to enhance those products, be thought leaders in this space with respect to data and analysis, which, I think brings us here today with our Job Seeker Nation report.
Nice. Looking forward to it. How long have you been at Employ now?
Oh gosh, 2.5 years.
Been there, okay. So what's your biggest challenge right now as a chief people officer in this kind of existing climate we're in?
I think honestly, truly honestly, I think it's the same challenge that we actually see reflected in our own data, and that's trust. Internally, as a CPO, you are trying to build an employee experience that provides, something that people genuinely believe in, where what's promised matches what's delivered, and sort of that gap between expectations and reality is what's driving things like early exits and disengagement and ultimately and unfortunately attrition. And I think when we look at the report, 46% of people who left a job within the first 90 days said it's because the role wasn't consistent with what was communicated during hiring. And I think that's a signal for every people leader, including myself. I spend a lot of time making sure we're not just attracting talent, but we're setting honest and clear expectations from day one. And I think I'll just leave with this. Like, I think as technology continues to advance, that gap is widening in a lot of companies. I think it's unintentional, if I'm entirely honest with you, but that's the point. We need to be more intentional.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, what's one example you guys have changed in the recent, maybe last year, to just improve the employee experience there at Employ, or maybe the onboarding, things like that? Does something come to mind?
Yeah. For us, we are a fully remote organization. And I think, 6 years ago when the pandemic hit, everybody had a focus on how to keep people engaged remotely. And I think that sort of fell down, maybe not everywhere, but I think in a lot of companies that fell down the ladder of priorities. And so for us, I think we've spent a great deal of time in the last year thinking through how do we continue to engage people remotely. We've changed our communication platforms internally. We actually invested more dollars into a different internal chat application that we believed will help us not just find efficiency with our workflows, but connect people more broadly and bring some fun back into work. And we've found ways to try and meaningfully connect people. We do, silly holiday parties that are virtual. We do key send outs at pivotal points in people's lives, but that's our goal, and that extends to onboarding. We really want to bring people together and foster a sense of connection early and often.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's talk about the highlights here. I plucked a few out from my favorites, Stephanie, from the report. So I'm going to read some of those, and feel free to
Sure.
comment if you want to. The great stay becomes the great pause. It's kind of the theme, I guess, of the report. Openness to new opportunities dropped for the first time in 3 years from 46% to 43%. That was interesting.
Mhm.
Here's one, scam implosions. 53% of job seekers have encountered a job posting they believed was a scam. Top red flags include roles that are looking too good to be true and requests for early personal identity information. Are you hearing that among your clients as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the ghosting trend, recruiter hiring manager ghosting is up with 32% of candidates experiencing it this year. We still haven't fixed that ghosting thing yet, Stephanie. Why do you think that is?
Oh gosh. Well, to be honest with you, I have a personal opinion. I really think that it has a lot to do with how you set up your tech and how what you expect of your teams. So, silly example, we don't ghost a single candidate at Employ. I'm certainly not saying we're the gold standard, but it is really important to my TA leader that every person who takes the time to create an application has that follow through, especially if they've had interaction with the recruiter. We more, we focus on it more than I think, a
Mhm.
lot of other organizations do, but we are not greedy with our application collection. I don't leave a posting up for weeks on end and collect 5,000 applications. It's just that's wrong. And
Yeah.
so we actually shut our posts down. And so that's an example from us. But I do think that each TA leader, each HR leader needs to take a look at in their process what is actually causing them to not be able to follow up with candidates. Is it the way their technology is structured? Is it that they don't have enough AI available to them to be able to do the volume of follow up? Or is there a breakdown in just expectations in terms of your recruitment team?
Yeah. Interesting. And my other key highlight was human oversight. 40% state that having a human review AI-driven recommendations would make them more comfortable overall. So that's where we're getting into the sort of the human in the loop here and the balance between AI and humans. What are your thoughts on that? Just in terms of striking that balance between the human in the loop and the AI
Yeah.
overview
Well,
recommendation.
that's that, yeah, 100%. And I think that's personally, that's a platform of mine. I think that across an entire HR organization, if I'm being honest with you, AI is meant to be a tool. It is not meant to replace humans. AI lacks context of your organization. And one of the most important parts of hiring somebody into your business is ensuring that their experiences don't just check a box, but they are relevant to the needs of your org. That doesn't happen through AI. Yeah, you got a job description. It's got a whole list of tasks and responsibilities, but what's the persona of the person that's going to be successful in that role? What are the key experiences and challenges that they've overcome? That comes from a recruiter. A piece of technology can certainly support you in streamlining an application process, but they certainly, can't replace the judgment of a human. I would say as you are evaluating your own technology offering, I don't believe in auto rejections. I just don't. I think using AI for match purposes is interesting, right? Being able to
Mhm.
prioritize candidates and help us understand what are the key words and things that are said in a resume or experientially that maybe filter them to somebody that could be more of a potential match. But it definitely requires human oversight, 100%.
Yeah. How do you feel about the whole just the AI interviewing trend happening right now in the space? There's a lot of new startups around that. I'm not sure if you guys are doing it yet or not there at Employ, but what's your take on the whole AI interviewing thing?
Hmm. I think every organization has to do what makes the most sense for them. I think, AI again is meant to be a tool that helps. We have a product that we offer that supports hiring managers through the interview process where it can use AI to generate specific interview questions, either based on how the conversation is going, based on their resume, based on the job description, and it supports them and can provide them coaching and guidance after the conclusion of that interview. And it also supports in the feedback collection and ensuring there's no bias in the process. That credible application, right? Because now you have consistency across your organization. You are asking questions consistently, you're obtaining information consistently, and you are vetting candidates against the same level of criteria. Do I think that I would want to put a bot in front of a candidate and interview them? I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I don't certainly don't knock other organizations who are, but
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah. Well, it tends to be happening more in the high volume stuff, which, to me makes
Yeah,
sense. It's just scaling your ability
yeah.
to recruit those people.
I think
All right.
some of this, though, I'm so sorry. I think some of this is different flavors of things that have been around for eons. I worked at a company about 10 years ago that had an insane high volume.
Hmm.
They were retail store locations and had an incredible college recruitment program. The volume was astronomical with that college recruitment program. It was super desirable to work for that organization. And we leveraged tools that did video interviews ahead of interaction with a recruiter. That's really not different than a lot of what we're seeing today. It's just being packaged differently.
Yeah,
And so I think as you're using that to support you through volume, great. But if you're using that as a tool to pull people out of your process, again, it's that concept of leverage the tool, but a human needs to oversee it.
totally. The share of job seekers who say finding a new role is very difficult jumped from 21% to 30%, while those saying it's somewhat easy or very easy both declined. Why is job hunting getting harder, do you think, Stephanie? It just seems like I've been doing this for 25 years now, and it seems like job seeking never gets easy for these folks. But what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's taking longer. It is harder um to make that connection with an organization. I think, folks are staying put for a number of reasons, but as we can see in the data, the actual process of finding a role and getting an interview has been elongated, probably, due to the volume of applicants that are in the market. But I think that's really the largest contributing factor. I also think trust. Trust is a theme that has come through this report this year. It came through our report last year. Even Edelman puts out a report, and trust was the key theme of their report last year as well. I think it's about candidates trusting, their current employer, the organization that they, are applying for. I think it truly, truly comes down to trust.
What do you think is if you had to pick one thing that employers can do to establish trust with a candidate, what is that thing?
I think, today's candidates are expecting personalization, they are expecting communication, they are expecting connection, and again, trust. So I think you got to be able to scale, but stay personal. You have to be clear about timelines and interview stages and how decisions are being made. And then you actually need to keep candidates in the loop every step of the way. And I know that is a hard thing. It always has been, but now we have technology that can support you through that. Automated text message reminders, leveraging a tool that helps you AI generate follow-up and reminders. You've got to make this process feel human. You have to be able to leverage AI to scale efficiently while keeping the evaluation, the decision making, and the accountability all human. And then the last piece of this, because I know I've mentioned AI a lot, like I really do firmly believe that clearly communicate where AI is supporting the process,
Hmm.
how decisions are being made, and what level of human oversight is involved. Because we saw that in the report. People are questioning the level of human oversight.
Yeah, I think if you just tell the candidates what to expect, I think that to me that's like the number one thing. Like it's just that candidate experience, like you talked about there, is so
Yeah.
key.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think honestly that transparency, some of it personally, some of it I think is what I've loved about having new generations enter the workforce is that they are demanding things we didn't. And I love that.
well, speaking of generations, there's a generational divide in the reports on AI trust. What's behind that, do you think? And who trusted more, do you think? Would you say?
Oh gosh. So I'm going to show my age here, but I think younger generations are generally more comfortable with AI, but they're also more sensitive to how it's used in hiring decisions. There's that sort of that they're more loud about the ethical component. I think folks that generally identify as baby boomers are most concerned about companies relying like too heavily on AI. I think in our report, 60% expressed concern, and then Gen Z was about 49%. And then that concern dropped significantly around younger generations. So I think millennials was at 40 and then Gen Z right behind them at 39. But when it comes to feeling directly impacted, the trend actually flips. Younger candidates are far more likely to believe that they've been automatically rejected by AI. So that's like a really interesting dichotomy. And I think
Yeah,
this
my
really,
daughter's 23, sorry, is very skeptical of AI, and I
yeah,
keep pushing her to use some of the tools, stuff like that. But
yeah,
she has that skepticism for sure, and I think her
yeah,
friends do as well. What she tells
yeah.
me. So,
100%. But I think that comes down to exposure. So younger generations work with AI more in their day-to-day lives, and their own application process. So I think they expect it to be used by hiring teams, but they are also much more tuned into how it can impact decisions if left unchecked. It's almost like the amount of information you know, right? And how it can adversely sort of be used. So that's my opinion.
yeah. So during this great pause, what are some of the key steps employers could take to turn candidate interest into new hires? There, maybe is it more about the storytelling? Is it the employer brand? What are your thoughts there?
If I'm honest with you, I think people are tired of talking. I think they're just so tired of talking. I think, information. is so immediate. Everything's immediate now, right? Like you pop onto any one of the social media platforms, there's a 30-second video, there's an influencer selling you something with a link that pops you right over to Amazon, and suddenly that's at your house the next day, right? Everything is instantaneous. And so, bringing that back to your direct question, I think that we have to stop talking. We've got to make things tangible. So, specific examples, growth needs to be tangible. It cannot be theoretical. We have to actually outline for these folks progression paths, timelines, and opportunities up front. Again, it can't just be mumbo jumbo, and we have to bring these roles to life. And so, during that hiring process, I firmly believe that we have to show people how teams actually work. What are the day-to-day meetings, communications, decision making, leadership style? We've got to close that gap between the description and reality. And then I think, we have to, I might get a big red mark for me for saying this, but we
Hmm.
have to treat flexibility as a core part of the offer, not a perk. We have to define what it actually looks like. Is it remote? Is it hybrid? Is it open schedules? So that candidates can assess the fit. Because if flexibility is limited, we have to be able to offer alternatives like predictable schedules, clear boundaries, what have you. And then I think the last thing I would say that I advise people of all the time is that we have to continuously pressure test the experience. We do not need to wait for exit. We should never wait for exits. We need to use our candidate feedback, our new hire check-ins, our onboarding insights to spot and fix misalignments instantaneously. We have and we do this at Employ. We follow sort of this human-centered design approach to everything that we do. We are constantly iterating. We are constantly looking where we've fallen short or where a candidate could perceive that, and we make alterations to that as well. And I think the world is moving fast, and we need to move along with it.
Gotcha. Major takeaways I plucked out of here. Just run through a couple of these.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time today, Stephanie. We talked about trust in there. This means publishing verified, clear job descriptions and communicating transparently. That's pretty important there.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, fix the timeline mismatch on sensitive data, asking for identity verification or complex logins before an application creates drop-offs. Of course, sync
Yeah.
onboarding and recruiting promises because early retention is heavily broken by unmet expectations. We talked about that. And then automate administration, but keep evaluation human. Use AI to scale manual processes like interview scheduling, but ensure human decision making remains at the core of the evaluation there. So, um, what's it like running? How big is your recruiting team there?
How are they? How big is it?
Yeah,
My recruiting team, it's not, we're small but mighty. I have a few recruiters in the United States, a few recruiters that are in India, and we have an incredible director of talent acquisition.
nice. Do you, with the merger of the three companies, are
Yeah.
they all, do they recruit for everyone or are you,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, we're a fully integrated business. And so my entire HR team works on the full suite. They support employees across all of our product verticals. So yeah, we're a fully integrated team. Certainly some of my recruiters have been with us since they were in their original brand. They offer such incredible insights because each of my recruiters do come from one of our different products. And so I love all of their different perspectives on our approach and our process and how to make things efficient.
nice. Are you guys hiring at all?
We are, yes.
Okay,
We are hiring. We're hiring quite a bit, actually. We are in growth mode. We're hiring AI native engineers, quite a few of them. So by all means, reach out to my team. And we're also hiring a great deal of folks in our customers and our sales organizations as well.
excellent. How to apply?
Employ.com/careers.
All right, very good. And where do we get the report, Stephanie? Tell them where to go.
Yeah, you can go to the website of any of our products, lever.com, employeeinc.com. It's right there on the main page, and also our LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. And do you have a favorite stat in there that you want to end out with here?
Oh gosh, so many of the stats this time were so good. I don't know that I could necessarily pick a stat. What I always find fascinating when I analyze the data, because I'm the biggest geek, the minute we get the results back, I'm with the team going, let me read it, let me see it. Like, what
Mhm.
could this mean? And it's the combination of some of the metrics, right? Like we talked about the generational element of, Gen Z individuals and even millennials being really open to using AI as part of their search, but then on the opposing side, like being a little bit more skeptical of it. I always love those conflicting perspectives because I love to dig into that and say, like, what does this really mean? And so there are a couple of those throughout the report, and I think it's so fascinating. And there were times that I read through the report and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is exactly what it's like here, or this is exactly what it's like at this organization I'm consulting for. So it's really great to see when data and insights mirror reality, to be honest with you.
Well, the 2026 Job Security Nation report is out. I'll throw a link in the show notes there. Stephanie, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate you stopping by here on RegTech.
Thank you.
That will do for this episode of the RegTech podcast. Thanks again to Dahlia for their sponsorship. Be sure to follow myself and RegTech Media on LinkedIn. See for your podcast, video, and blog we publish. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And remember, always be recruiting.